This episode is brought to you by The Park People. The Park People is a nonprofit working with communities to plant trees and improve parks for a healthy, resilient Denver. In times of funding and resource scarcity, the Park People need your support now more than ever. Support the Park People by donating via their Colorado Gives page, and your gift will be doubled thanks to an anonymous donor. Your donation ensures all Denverites have access to the benefits of trees, parks, and green spaces. Home of the Denver Digs Trees program, the Park People has planted over 70,000 trees throughout Denver. Learn about the benefits of planting trees this Colorado Gives Day at theparkpeople.org. That's theparkpeople.org. This episode is brought to you by Warren Village. Do I pay rent or pay for childcare? It's a painful question that thousands of single parents in Colorado have asked themselves. But for 50 years, Warren Village has given them an answer. Warren Village provides both safe housing and high-quality on-site early learning centers for low-income single-parent families. As they regain stability, their advocates help families pursue their dreams with career coaching, resource navigation, and mental health support. This Colorado Gives Day, you can help families rewrite their stories. Visit warrenvillage.org to donate and spark change that lasts generations.
Today on CityCast Denver, if there's anything most Denverites can agree on, it's that our public transit system could be a lot better. For the first time since the stay-at-home orders in 2020, fewer people rode RTD buses and light rail in 2025 than they did a year ago. And ridership is still far, far from pre-pandemic levels. And that's without even mentioning the multi-billion-dollar budget deficits projected for the agency in just a few years. RTD's CEO and General Manager Debra Johnson doesn't do a lot of interviews, so we're lucky to have her on the show today to share what she thinks has been going wrong and some of her ideas for improving this big, complicated transit system that is RTD. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Debra Johnson, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
I'm so glad you're here. We've been waiting a long time to talk to you about RTD and everything transit.
Awesome.
It's a very, very hot topic. A lot of complaints, I have to say. That's my main topic I want to talk to you about. Is I think you probably have the job people complain about the most in the city.
Really?
Why isn't the bus on time? Why is the light rail late? What is that like, having this job?
Well, I think if anything, I pride myself on being a person in the people business. What we do is serve the public, and quite naturally, as people, we're human beings, all imperfectly perfect, and everybody has an opinion, perception, and attitude about various things. And oftentimes, most individuals may not have a clear-cut understanding what it takes to deliver transit services to a major metropolitan region. And I'm glad to be here so we can help demystify all of that, recognizing that the agency is comprised of some dynamic individuals that are dedicated public servants. We're also users of our system. And so when people talk about complaints, oftentimes there's commendations and comments as well that I utilize the system and I experience them firsthand. But just because I have a certain moniker at the agency doesn't basically absolve me from being a transit user that experiences the same things that most people do nationwide when they are a transit customer.
You're saying you ride the bus?
I do.
Which line?
The bus. I ride the bus. I live downtown. I take the 15. I take the 0. It depends on where I'm going, because if I'm going to a meeting, I hop on board. If I'm going over to a meeting at CDOT, I'll get on the W line to go over there. When's
the last time your bus was late?
The last time my bus was late?
Yeah.
What
did you do?
Well, I took the bus, and sometimes I'll walk in the process until the bus comes because I don't like to stand around sort of idly as I move forward.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things. And so just the other day, quite naturally, I was on the A line, and we had some service issues, not in part of anything that RTD did, just in fact of not having dedicated right-of-way as we look at our railroad and our network. And so quite naturally made a call to my Deputy Chief Operations Officer of Rail and was trying to figure out what was going on because we had some signal problems and had to have people out there. And so we had 30-minute headways in lieu of 15-minute headways.
That's fine. So I'm imagining you waiting on the platform because the train is late. You're calling in and they just tell you what they're telling everyone else.
Yeah, well, I was sitting on the train, but basically we had to wait until we had authorization for the train to proceed.
Oh, I see.
And so I was trying to ascertain what was happening because I hadn't received an alert. And so, yes, so I share that to say that, yes, I am a user of the system. Very analogous to, managing a restaurant and never eating there. You have to have an understanding of what your customers are experiencing. And that's why we do some of the things we do, as we have a laser-like focus on improving the customer experiences and understanding, what one's journey is like. All of those things are incredibly important.
What's your biggest gripe as an RTD rider? Not as a CEO, just as a rider.
Well, I would say that's kind of hard for me to say, because trying to delineate between the two, because I've been using transit since I was knee-high to a duck. Not in this area, but just I've been a lifelong transit customer. And so I have insider information. When you think about the way our system is designed, in most instances, we don't have various transit signal prioritization. We're not in an environment where most.
Wait, what do you mean transit? You've lost me here. This is a little bit of jargon. I don't know what you're saying.
So when I say transit system priority, that in a city, the priority is transit. For instance, the city and county of San Francisco has a transit priority that was adopted by the city and county of San Francisco. It's been in existence since the 1970s. So when you think about the configuration of the roadways, transit is given priority. So you'll see red carpet lanes, as I call them. And
Denver doesn't have this.
Well, Denver has, in some areas, there's some transit priority preemptions, i.e. if a bus was approaching an intersection. In some areas, you have vehicle infrastructure, and quite naturally, when a bus is approaching the intersection, the light at the intersection may change for the bus. I'm saying it's not throughout the entire network. And so when we think about that, you may have in some areas of our service network whereby there's parking sometimes in a bus lane. And so that's going to impede the on-time performance for that bus. And so those are types of examples I mean by not having a prioritization for transit, because there's not dedicated guideways and things of the like. So you have a bus that is competing in mixed flow use traffic. So whatever somebody is dealing with in a single occupant vehicle, quite naturally, that's still going to be applicable to a bus. And in certain parts of the country, certain parts of the world, as you entice greater transit utilization, you want to ensure that one mode is more attractive. And so that's what I mean. And so as you talked about my gripe, I would say that we don't necessarily have a level of prioritization. So we're working within different constraints.
You're saying this in the most polite way, but I think we both know you're saying Denver loves the car. We love our cars here in Denver, right? That's the culture.
I would say it appears as if people do utilize automobiles a lot.
Yeah, I'll say. Yeah, that's what this whole city was built for. I think the transit is like an afterthought. That's how I see it. I mean, there's so many people. Let's get to some of these topics. More than ever, people are driving cars. Ridership on RTD is down. I talked to a bunch of people in preparation to have this interview with you. You don't do a lot of these, so I wanted to be prepared. And I heard a lot of people's complaints, a lot of gripes. But the one thing I think is a real issue that I wanted to start with is ridership. It's down. It's down almost 20% on light rail since last year. Seems like a big problem. Why is this happening?
Well, I would say there's a couple of factors, once again, as we talk about where we are. So you're talking about that Denver is enamored with the car. Well, when you think about systems that came online, especially post-World War II, we're talking about our original light rail line opening in downtown Denver on October 7th, 1994. When you look at the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority in Boston, that's the oldest rail line they have part of their network that opened in the late 1800s. I've had the opportunity to work for the city and county of San Francisco's Municipal Transportation Agency. There's the world-renowned cable cars that have been in existence for 110 years. In most areas, when you think about development, decisions were made, and in some instances, there was historic streetcar running within Denver, and a decision was made, be it good, bad, or indifferent, to remove those rail lines. And so when you think about going back, putting in some level of infrastructure after the city has been built up, there's going to be a lot of different aspects that have to be taken into consideration, looking at it through an environmental lens, looking at land use, looking at housing, and then basically the funding aspect. Who is going to front that bill as you go forward, and really is the juice worth the squeeze? So there's a lot of different elements that come into play as you talk about transit utilization. Getting back to the question you posed.
Yes, why is ridership down is the question.
So why is transit utilization? Well, coming into your building today, and I asked, are you the only person in this building? And you said on most days. And so when you think about the nature of the transportation network as designed, a hub and spoke whereby the ultimate goal was to bring people into the central business district, which is within Denver, the most populous city within our service network. The vacancy rate in buildings has soared, and that's due to a myriad of different issues. Recognizing that remote work has now become the new way of doing business. And so when you factor in the way the system was designed and you look at the transit utilization that pre-pandemic was coupled with folks saying that they were using the system to come to work, quite naturally, you're going to have an impact. Is that solely within RTD's auspices? I would say no. Can we be part of the solution? Absolutely. But it's a collective effort.
I think some people would say that RTD is part of the problem. I mean, look at the light rail slowdowns last year. It was like a year. And a lot of people would say it was poorly communicated, poorly handled, that it took that long in the first place. And light rail ridership in particular is down almost 20%.
Right. And so as I can speak to that as well, because we talk about our network, we're about 30 years old as it relates to light rail, and there was decisions made relative to what we're investing in. With RTD as a whole, it was building out a system, and now we're at a place where we have to maintain the system and looking at doing various track inspections and things of the like. There was a decision made, and I stand by my decision because I want to ensure that we have our assets in a state of good repair, whereby we needed to make decisions and repair the rail network. As we think about our light rail operation as a whole, in some aspects of our railway, we have only a single track. When you look at other systems across the country, there's double track, or there could be a third track, in the sense of you can utilize that for express usage when there's work being done. You don't have to just have a single tracking mechanism. You can have two tracks whereby you're working on one line that's been taken out of service, but you still have two. And so by virtue of the way the system was constructed, there are limitations. I got to share with you, I remember speaking to a good friend of mine who was a transit CEO in a different part of the country, and I was saying, there is some trepidation and angst amongst my team for, doing some work. And he was like, oh, all you got to do is just shut down the line. I said, we only have a single track. And so that's something that's not commonplace, but decisions were made perhaps.
Because the system was built that way.
Exactly.
You're hamstrung. Deferred maintenance has to happen at some point.
Exactly.
But it took a year, and people say it was poorly handled. Is there anything that you think could have gone better that you have learned for the next time there has to be a big maintenance project, which we know is inevitable?
Absolutely. To get out in front and be highly communicative. Because when we ventured down this path, doing our track inspections, we saw some defects on the rail, very analogous of somebody like scuffing their shoe, and there were like scuff marks on the railway. And so we noticed that there were more and more going forward. So slow speed orders are par for the course with any transit network. And as we looked at it going forward, didn't realize the magnitude, because what I learned is that we hadn't been doing the level of inspections that my team and I felt were necessary going forward. And so we wanted to ensure that we had the proper mechanisms in place. And more to the point, there's other external factors that come in. As we look at getting a rail grinder, we have the only light rail network in the state of Colorado. Our closest neighbor would be the Utah Transit Authority as it relates to light rail, and our second closest neighbor would be Valley Metro in Phoenix, Arizona. So when you're looking at individuals from the capacity of having a contractor to be able to mobilize, those things come into play. Having, steel readily available as it relates to doing rail replacement, that's something that comes into the equation as well as we talk about supply chain and just where we are holistically. So basically, what we are doing different is developing an asset renewal plan using our transit asset management plan. So we have an understanding of the work that we're doing and then incorporating that work into our scheduling. So we're managing expectations of our customers and we know what lies ahead. And so that way we can be more intentional and purposeful, especially when we're communicating out. And we did leverage that going forward with our most recent project that we just completed this past Thursday, or I should say Wednesday, our 86-day project where we did some rail replacement off of Colfax and Kalamath, which is part of our original light rail network. And we got out in front of that. I went out and did media. I had media availability. We were telling people what the timeline was, sending out videos that we had readily available, keeping the press apprised. And then basically when we finished up that project on Friday, being able to implement service relative to not waiting until our established service change, which we have 3 times a year.
So better planning, more communication is what I'm hearing for going forward. That's interesting. But I want to go back to something you said a minute ago about changing your focus. And this is something you said to the Denver Post recently. And I thought this was just so fascinating because they had this whole article about why ridership is down. And you apparently emailed them some answers to questions. You said, in the future, RTD will be, quote, changing its focus from primarily providing commuter services, she said, toward, quote, enhancing its bus and services and connections to high volume events, activity centers, concerts, and festivals. Now, all the people that I've talked to about this ridership problem say that ridership will increase if the frequency of service increases. And that's what, of all the comparable agencies I looked at, that's the only thing that I've heard anyone say works when it comes to bringing ridership back up. There's this Everett Transit that's actually among one of the only transit agencies in the country that's exceeded their pre-pandemic ridership. They say the reason is more frequency. And yet you want to increase focus on these high volume events. I don't understand why. Why are you doing that?
Okay, so first and foremost, as you look at Everett, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a paratransit agency as we talk about the state of Washington. Exactly. Okay. And so I think we have to manage expectations relative to the type of service that they are deploying. And I can't speak right now, get into detail relative to what their schedules are because I don't have that readily available. But getting back to high volume events, the reason why I broached that in the manner in which I did is we just talked about the vacancy rate relative to the businesses within downtown Denver. And this system was built on bringing people into the central business district and taking them out during core business hours. Recognizing that people are teleworking, what we did learn from the pandemic is that we're human beings and we crave that social interaction. What we do see is usage as it relates to activity centers as we qualified. We see people that are interested in going to basketball games, they're going to hockey games, that are going to dinner, that are going to the theater, and recognizing where there is the propensity, since folks aren't looking through the lens of commuting daily, it's capitalizing on the infrastructure and the network that we have to bring people where they want to go. And in doing so, what we've garnered from our survey results that we've seen over the past couple of years is that people still want to ensure that they can get to places where they can fellowship and have social activities. And hence, as we think about where we're sitting, that's why there is a laser-like focus as well on activity centers. And I include in activity centers institutions of higher learning, which we clearly have seen by virtue of our past program. And we have engaged with employers. And when I say employers, I mean from the academic level at universities, because there are students that are going to classes and there are faculty and staff that are working there. And that's a potential transit accelerator relative to utilizing the system that we have.
Okay, because that's a lot of people that could be using So you want to focus on some of those people. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. It feels like you're making a big bet, though, that people aren't going to go back to work, that they don't want to go back to work. I feel like you could make the same. I mean, I don't know. Is that a risk you're taking? Or have you made that decision to bet that people don't want to go back to work?
I'm not making a bet. I'm looking at the data, and I've been working with colleagues quite naturally as I look and engage with people that are at the Downtown Denver Partnership as we look at the vacancy rates and things of the like. One thing about RTD, quite naturally, is that we do a service change 3 times a year. And traditionally, they happen in January, May, and August because it's seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. As you think about folks taking vacations and holidays and coupled in, that's paramount throughout the country relative to transit utilization. And so when we talk about where we are at the here and now, we see people utilizing the system more by virtue of engaging with the employers and having an understanding through their past programs when people are coming into the office. And I'm speaking from a place...
You lost me. I don't know what you're talking about. You're engaging with employers in past programs. What are you saying?
Yes.
Could you just repeat that?
Yes, I can. And so when I'm talking about that RTD has past programs, we have one, it's called the Eco Pass program.
Yes, I'm familiar with this.
It's geared toward employers. We have one called the Nico Pass program that's geared toward neighborhoods. Or neighborhoods in residential areas. And then we also have our College Pass program. By virtue of engaging with those 3 different entities, we have data points relative to the transit utilization with those different customer segments. So when I speak to making decisions about what might be paramount relative to how we're delivering transit services, it's not being done in a vacuum. It's using data.
I understand. You're looking at the numbers. But you're talking about having communication with the Downtown Denver Partnership, presumably with the mayor's office. You must know how much they're investing in trying to lure people back downtown. They want to change people's behavior and get people back downtown.
Yes, and we're working in partnership with them.
Are they furious with you about this bet you're making on people not wanting to come back to downtown?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not a gambling person, so I'm not betting.
Right.
I am making a decision. I'm making decisions based upon data.
Sure.
Because if I was just doing this by pure gut and betting on something, I shouldn't be in this job. So as we look at where we're going, I am engaged with individuals quite naturally, partnered with the mayor's office, Downtown Denver Partnership, as we looked at 16th Street and the services that we provide. As we've made adjustments with the completion of construction, I operate from the vantage point that we're better together, and we have to work in tandem because you can't deliver transit services to a multifaceted area that is comprised of 40 municipalities, 8 jurisdictions, 2,345 square miles, in absentia. You have to do it through a partnership lens.
Sure. Yeah. You've got a lot of different people that are asking you for a lot of different things. I'm sure everyone wants more service for their district, your whole board, 15 members, everyone has a different needs. But are they asking, has the mayor asked you, why not more frequent service downtown?
Basically, as relates to the frequency, we do have, Denver is our most populous area. And as you look at where we are downtown, we do have frequent service. You look at the 15, quite naturally, it runs down Colfax. We have those headways, since that's why we're running the 15 and 15 limited, so we can have greater throughput.
So you think it's frequent enough?
Well, it's going to be more frequent. Hence, that's why we have partnered with the federal government and the city of County of Denver and the city of Aurora to have a bus rapid transit project, the first one in the state of Colorado, because there is that potential. It's the longest contiguous business corridor in the entire country. And there's that propensity there. Hence, that's why the investment is being made, because we can have greater throughput. We could have the opportunity for people that are utilizing the system to not look at a schedule, that could basically go out to that medium platform and stand there and recognize that there'll be another bus coming within 5 minutes.
This episode is brought to you by the Colfax Avenue Business Improvement District. It's back, baby. The best time of the year to snag the present that's going to keep your place on the top of the nice list for another year. A bag of Colfax. Bag of Colfax is Colfax Ave's annual curated gift bag filled with 4 to 7 hand-selected products from iconic Colfax Avenue businesses. Past bags have featured treats and treasures from the likes of Champagne Tiger, 303 Boards, Pampered Paws, The Learned Lemur, and so many more. And this year, there's a very special gift inside, unlike anything offered before. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but I can say this. It comes from one of the most beloved Colfax businesses, and they are truly pouring their heart into it. A standard bag is only $60, and the VIP option is $85. But hurry, these are going to sell out. They go on sale November 29th, and pickup starts the first week of December at the Learned Lemur. All orders will be fulfilled by December 23rd. You can get yours online today at colfaxab.com/Colfax-programs. That's colfaxab.com/Colfax-programs. This episode is brought to you by MultiPass. Creative communities are built on an ecosystem that relies on artists, producers, venues, and fans. But there's so much more happening behind the scenes that's important too. This is where MultiPass comes in. More than just your average ticketing platform, MultiPass was made by event hosts for event hosts. And when you buy tickets through MultiPass, you unlock a special chat feature so you can connect directly with fellow fans of your favorite comedian, DJ night, dance party, and more. Find your new bestie at a local show, even before you go. MultiPass, designed to help everyone in the event ecosystem win, not just the platform. Learn more at multipass.com. That's multipass.com. This episode is brought to you by the Ballpark District. Celebrate the holiday season at Elfin' Around Ballpark, December 13th from 3:30 to 8 p.m. Explore and sip, snack, and shop your way to cool prizes and collect stickers in Denver's ballpark community. Think bingo meets bar crawl, but with bells on. There's a little something for everyone who could use a little holiday magic at this fun and free event. No need to sit on the shelf this season, as this event is designed for solo explorers and large groups alike. Don't miss out on a chance to ring in the holidays the ballpark way and win cool prizes donated by local businesses and other fun ballpark favorites, including the Hello Colorado Rockies prize package. Elf or other festive attire is encouraged. No purchase necessary to participate. Bar locations and the Elfin' Around after party are 21 and up. Start your journey at any of the businesses or check in at the official workshop at 2101 Larimer Street, where a gift awaits. Find out more at elfinaroundballpark.eventbrite.com or find the Ballpark Denver on Instagram and Facebook.
What do you think is the biggest problem facing RTD right now?
I think one of the biggest problems that we have is our asset renewal. By virtue of the conversation that we're having right now, I was just going to explain that, is relative to the infrastructure, because there is a lack of understanding just holistically about what it takes, because this is a newer transit agency. And what I mean by that is RTD hasn't been around for hundreds of years. When you look at the rail infrastructure, as I indicated before, we're talking about the oldest rail line is in downtown that basically is 31 years old. And so when you look at the useful life of rail and rail cars, we're approaching that benchmark as we move forward. And it's the likes of not having that familiarity with it in this region. Early on in the conversation, we were talking about Boston, and that system is the oldest, as I indicated. It's been around in excess of 100 years. And we're talking about slow speed orders. Well, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority had slow speed orders consecutively for 20 plus years. It's by virtue of one, using an analogy, living in a house and you've been there for 30 years, you're going to have to replace your heating system. You're going to have to replace your roof. And as you're doing that, or perhaps do a kitchen remodel, and you're going to have to endure that as you move forward. So we're at a place right now where we're investing into the sustainability of the investments that have been made. And as we go forward, that will become par for the course.
So Denverites need to get on board with the idea that it's going to cost money to upkeep the system as good as it is.
Well, when we talk about costing money, quite naturally, that's what we're factoring into the equation as we move forward, because we want to ensure that our current assets that we have can be maintained for future generations going forward.
Yeah.
And quite naturally, we want to ensure that our assets are in a state of good repair so we can be mechanically safe and mechanically sound as we deliver public transit services.
Yeah, this is kind of where this is why I enjoy thinking about this stuff, because you made one of these decisions when we're talking about this downtown service. Downtown is one of the biggest sales tax drivers of the whole network. And if you're deprioritizing getting people downtown, commuters downtown, maybe there's going to be a little less sales tax in your coffers tomorrow.
Well, I'm not
Do you
saying
think about it that way?
I'm not deprioritizing as it relates to how we deliver transit services. So I want to be clear on that because I think we're conflating issues here. And so what I'm saying to you is I have a responsibility to ensure that we are mechanically safe and sound. And so when there comes to decisions being made, whether or not we're doing track inspections or things of the like, considering that we are carrying the most precious cargo that is, which are human beings, I'd make that decision again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, the money and the budget stuff is interesting because I was looking at some of the budget numbers and the projections, and it does not look good. I'm sure you're looking at these numbers too. $1 billion deficits projected 2030, 2035. Is that right? That's what I'm seeing. That looks scary.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
So, of course, it impacts me holistically because when we talk about the core business of RTD, which is delivering transit services, you can look at any transit agency across the country, it's labor intensive. And you can talk about, machine learning, autonomous vehicles and things of the like. But we live in a society whereby people still find comfort in staying human beings. And so the reason I share that is that 2/3 of our operating budget is geared toward labor. And so when you think about where the agency was, I joined the agency 5 years ago in the height of the pandemic, and decisions were made. Quite naturally, people were sequestered. People weren't utilizing the transit services as we knew them to be because of the stay-at-home orders. And we basically made a decision, and I walked in and the budget was being decided on my second day, that there was going to be a reduction in force. So when you talk about what faces the agency relative to our 5-year financial forecast, there's a myriad of different things that collectively need to be taken into consideration.
Like what?
The diversification of revenue. What might that mean as we talk about the funding structure of the agency holistically?
Great question. One person I talked to proposed running a ballot measure to increase sales taxes on the city of Denver, maybe like 1%. Is an idea I've heard thrown around. 1% increase in Denver, 0.5% in the suburbs. That could raise hundreds of millions of dollars for RTD.
That could be an option. And another option is
Do you like that idea?
I would say what I focused on is we talked about transit prioritization. And so collectively as a region, if transit is a priority, there are things that we can all rally around. So should there be a greater emphasis on parking? Should parking revenue come to RTD to invest back in the transit system?
Oh, that's an interesting
as we
idea.
go forward? So as we talk about providing service to activity centers, the core business that we do is public. And so as we talk about different events that are happening, should there be a surcharge on a ticket when you go to one of these public venues that feed back into transit to move people to and fro? When you think about the taxation relative to where we sit, a ballot measure is one thing, and I'm not disputing that that could be a form of revenue diversification. But on the flip side of it is if we're really committed to prioritizing transit, what might we do collectively as a region and in parts of the sub-regions of the area to put that greater emphasis on utilizing transport?
If you did run a ballot measure, let's say you decided that was the path, that was the right one to go, and that was a good move, do you think that Denverites would go for it?
So let me just qualify for you as well as your listeners. I, as the general manager and CEO, could put forward ideas. I do report to a policy body that's comprised of 15 elected officials. That entity would make the decision. And quite naturally, as an individual who is employed as a public servant, could not be the face of a ballot measure quite naturally, because that would be a conflict as we move forward. So as relates to whether or not Denverites would go for it, there's a lot of conjecturing and speculation about what that may be. The ideas that I put forward prior to a ballot measure, I think would give us a greater opportunity to be more agile and I'd say adaptable to what it is that RTD needs as it relates to service delivery.
The parking money thing. So like where would that, which parking spaces? Where do I pay for parking that you would want a piece of that money?
So I'm just saying that it could be a myriad of different things.
But I want to know which one your favorite is.
How about a parking meter just in and of itself, right? When you talk about coming in, there could be a transit demand fee. If you're looking at building a new residence.
A transit demand fee like the one they have in New York that was so controversial?
I'm not talking about congestion management. No, that's different. So
Sorry, the jargon is confusing.
Okay, so what I'm talking about is somebody who is bringing a car into the downtown and they want to park the car.
Yeah.
So if you're constructing new residential parking and things of the like, then the developer could pay a fee relative to the prices that they're going to basically need relative to parking spaces per unit that they would look to construct, and those monies could come to RTD. And there could be that partnership collectively, because in my experience, when you introduce one to transit, one that may have trepidation and angst, when you take up transit at the outset of where you're living, it becomes a habit. And you wouldn't think twice about it because that's how you know to move to and fro.
Yeah.
And so all of those types of activities could be incentives relative to ensuring that you're garnering a transit customer for life.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about a ballot measure, that is something in and of itself whereby, okay, I voted for this, I'm paying this sales tax, but it's not It's really not one that's front of mind for everybody. And so when you think about a surcharge going to, an event at the ball arena or at the theater, and you see that there's a $2 surcharge, you're like, I'm paying this surcharge. Perhaps I should be taking transit here as opposed to paying this surcharge and then paying to park my car in this parking garage.
Yeah, yeah. This is, my dad's an economist. He always would tell me, you tax the things you don't want, or you tax the things you want less of.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get where you're coming from here. I do feel like the pushback you'd get from this parking thing, at least if it was on developers, would be that would drive up housing costs, that those costs would just be passed along to the renters. And we're already in this housing crisis and we can't be spending more, asking people to spend more on housing.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Fair enough.
You pay for what you want as you go forward because, okay, do you want to pay more for parking? So as I said before, you got to give a little to get a little back. And that just speaks volumes to the notion about RTD needs to be better, but recognizing that, as I said before, that we're servicing multiple municipalities and jurisdictions, and my colleagues and I at the agency don't have auspices over the arterials and the infrastructure, the sidewalks where we have bus stops and things of the like. All of that comes into play.
I wanted to ask you about some quotes from this article that kind of get to this, and I would love to hear your response. This is an article that my friend, reporter Nate Miner from Colorado Public Radio wrote about a year and a half ago about some high up officials that left RTD talking about your leadership. He quoted one of them saying, "I've heard her," that's you, Debra Johnson, say she doesn't like Denver and Denver doesn't like her. One said, "Her heart is not in Denver or with that agency, and you can feel it."
That's interesting because I've been here in excess of 5 years, and I can tell you what I said. I'm a native Californian.
Mm-hmm.
It was 15 degrees when I went to work out this morning. I said I don't like the cold. So by me saying I don't like the cold, I think an assumption was made relative to me saying I don't like the area.
Yeah.
And so I did not say I did not like Denver.
Okay. You think they just misunderstood?
I would say so.
Yeah. What do you like about Denver?
I like Denver, the whole aspect. While it's cold outside, I was sharing this with my colleague Stuart as we were walking over here, that the sun is always shining. You don't have the opportunity to be melancholic. Even when you're having a bad day, you can decide on how you're going to factor that in. What I like about Denver, the walkability of it all. I like how I have made my way relative to ensuring that I can get to the places that I like, utilizing transit quite naturally, venturing out. I love Denver Union Station. It's a historic building, the first public-private partnership from a transit perspective in the entire country, and that's in my backyard for all intents and purposes. That's what I really like, and it's very iconic.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good answer. I love Union Station too. And it does get cold. It's a fact, people. It's true. But the people of Denver, though, like this, I want to drill a little bit deeper onto this. Denver has this car-centric culture. Denverites love their cars. Most Denverites drive. But like I said, you know this transit system better. Do you think that Denverites will, like, what do we need to get to that point where Denverites will invest in a world-class public transit system?
Well, I can't speak for every single Denverite, but what I believe is important is getting back to some of the responses that I've already given in the sense of making it a lot less, making it, well, let me phrase it this way. We need to make it a lot easier and accessible. And quite naturally, as we talk about where we are collectively, it is working in partnership with my colleagues at the various city departments and things of the like, ensuring that the prioritization is placed on transit. And I want to be clear that we have great working relationships as relates to where we sit and what we can do. And as you indicated, it is that we are trying to build up a network within a confined space that's already built out. And so there are limitations, and money isn't endless as we talk about the forecast from a financial vantage point. And so decisions have to be made about what it is that we can do. But I think if anything, it's the ease of knowing that you can get out into the system and not think about it. And some of the things that RTD has done as of late to make that easier is our tap and ride. You can pay for whatever is in your wallet. So what I mean by that is using your, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay to get on the system so you don't have to figure out, what does this mean? I'm walking up to a ticket vending machine and there's all these different buttons, and how am I going to navigate this? And let me just forget about this and hop into Uber. So it's basically making it a lot more simplistic and accessible. Yeah. So you take all of that consternation away from somebody as they're making a decision about their mobility.
Okay, so last question is based on that same report I mentioned earlier from CPR and Nate Miner, and these top RTD officials that have departed the agency in recent years. The article is about, basically they say it's because of you. And the quote here is, many of the former managers also said she has failed to chart a course for the state's largest transit agency. One former senior leader said, I have no idea what her vision for the organization is at all. So that's what I wanted to ask you about. What is your vision for the future of RTD?
So the vision of RTD, which is a board-adopted vision, and let me just qualify my response by saying when I came into the organization, it was intentional and purposeful as related to where I sat, understanding what were the issues, what were the sink the ship issues, and quite naturally, there was not a strategic plan or a unified vision in and of itself, or individuals collectively knowing what the mission is. So as you quote that article, there's a lot more context that needs to be provided relative to what that article actually was about, because I don't think in relationship to that was a fair characterization. I've been in the public sector for 30 years. I'm viewed as a national leader in this space. And that's the first time I've ever had something appear in that manner. But to answer the question more succinctly, our vision is to be the trusted leader in mobility, delivering value and excellence to our customers and community. And in doing so, it's being a good steward of taxpayer dollars, recognizing that I have the responsibility of being a good fiduciary, meaning that when we look at the investments that have been made into the transit network, is to sustain those for future generations. And that's what my team and I have been doing by virtue of looking at our transit asset management plan, ensuring that we can move people to and fro in a safe manner. It's investing and working with our partners as relates to people's perceptions and attitudes about one's personal safety when we think about people that have sought refuge in public rights of way, looking at what we're doing to create a more welcoming transit environment. And I believe we have yielded some success with that, and survey data has showed that, as well as data in and of itself when we look at the reduction in calls of service for illicit drug usage in our rights of way, as well as the uptick in ridership, going back to an earlier statement that was made relative to the rail network and slow speed orders, because year over year, we have increased that throughput as we basically were able to lift those slow speed orders on the light rail network.
Right, because ridership on light rail has been slowly getting better since the maintenance, is what you just said.
Since we lifted the slow speed orders due to the work that we were doing on the rail network, correct?
Right. Okay. Well, that's a vision. I mean, I appreciate that, and I really appreciate your time. Debra Johnson, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Everett, Washington Transit spokesperson Matt Coombs about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. And remember, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. But I just want to tell you a little, sneak peek, a little insider info. You might want to wait until next week when we're unveiling some even better perks. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then.
This episode is brought to you by the new CityCast Denver Perks program. That's right, we're doing something new, and it's going to save you money. Every week, we're highlighting great local businesses that are offering killer deals exclusively to CityCast Denver fans, so you can support local and save some green. It's a win-win. Like right now, Sexy Pizza is offering 20% off pizzas through January 31st with the code CityCast. To see a full list of deals, just visit denver.citycast.fm/perks. It's a great way to check out new restaurants, shops, and events in your city without breaking your budget. And I love that for you. And if you have a local business, you can offer your deals on our perks page too. Visit denver.citycast.fm/perks to learn more today.